The monitoring room was quiet except for the soft hum of computers and the occasional beep from the scanning equipment. Jake Morrison sat at his station, staring at screens that showed nothing but empty space and distant stars. He had been working at Hawking 7 Station for 3 years now, orbiting Neptune in the cold darkness of the outer solar system. Most days were boring. Most days nothing happened. He took a sip of his coffee, now cold, and glanced at the time. Another 6 hours until his shift ended. His colleague Peter Grant was asleep in the break room. The other 2 crew members were somewhere on the station, probably playing cards or watching old movies. Life on a deep space monitoring station was not exciting. Then something beeped. Not the usual beep. A different one. Jake sat up straight and looked at his screens. One of them showed a signal coming from deep space, far beyond the solar system. He frowned and ran a diagnostic check. Sometimes the equipment picked up interference from solar flares or cosmic radiation, but the diagnostic came back clean. The signal was real. He leaned forward and started analyzing it. The signal was strong, much stronger than any natural cosmic phenomenon should be. It pulsed in a regular pattern, repeating every few seconds. Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was unusual. This was very unusual. He reached over and pressed the intercom button. "Lisa, you need to see this." Dr. Lisa Chen arrived in the monitoring room 5 minutes later, still pulling on her jacket. She was the station's expert in communication patterns and language analysis. Her specialty was looking for signs of intelligent life in space signals, though until now she had never found anything. "What do you have?" she asked, moving to stand behind Jake's chair. "A signal. It's coming from about 43 light-years away, and it's definitely not natural." Jake pulled up the data on the main screen. "Look at this pattern. It repeats exactly every 4.7 seconds. No variation at all." Lisa stared at the screen, her eyes wide. She reached past Jake and started typing commands, running the signal through different filters and analysis programs. "This is mathematical," she said quietly. "This is a structured transmission." They worked together for the next hour, breaking down the signal into its component parts. The more they analyzed it, the more clear it became. This was not random noise from space. This was a message. Commander Alex Rivera was the station's commanding officer, a calm man in his 50s who had been in the space service for 30 years. When Jake and Lisa called him to the monitoring room, he listened carefully to their explanation. Then he looked at the data himself. "You're telling me this is a message from aliens?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Lisa said. "It contains mathematical sequences, coordinates in 3-dimensional space, and what appears to be some kind of universal language structure. Whoever sent this wanted it to be understood by anyone who received it." Alex was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What does it say?" Lisa pulled up her translation work on a secondary screen. "I've only decoded part of it, but the basics are clear. It's a distress call. Someone is asking for help. Military help, specifically. They're under attack and need reinforcements immediately." "Immediately?" Alex repeated. "This signal took 43 years to reach us, traveling at light speed." "That's the strange part," Jake said. "The message format suggests the sender expects a response within days, maybe weeks. Not decades. That means whoever sent this has faster-than-light communication. Maybe faster than light travel, too." The implications hung in the air. Humanity had spread across the solar system but had never broken the light-speed barrier. Scientists said it was impossible. Yet here was evidence that someone else had done it. Alex made a decision. "Keep working on the translation. I need to report this to Earth immediately. Don't tell anyone else on the station yet. Let's figure out what we're dealing with first." Over the next 2 days, Lisa made progress on decoding the message. The more she translated, the more worried she became. The distress call was desperate. It mentioned something called the Krethic Swarm, a hostile force that was destroying everything in its path. The message identified the senders as Valorans and included coordinates to their home system. Most disturbing was the automatic assumption in the message. The Valorans had sent this distress call to multiple nearby star systems, assuming all of them were home to advanced, spacefaring civilizations with military capabilities. They thought Earth was one of their allies. Alex gathered Jake, Lisa, and the rest of the station crew in the main conference room. "We have a situation," he began. "We've received what we believe is genuine communication from an alien species. They're asking for military help. The question now is, what do we do about it?" "We can't help them," Peter said immediately. "We don't have faster-than-light travel. By the time we could get there, even if we could, whatever is happening would be long over. That's not the only consideration, Lisa said. If we respond, we're revealing Earth's location to whoever might be listening. That could include the hostile force attacking these Valorans. And if we don't respond, Jake added, we're leaving someone to die when they asked us for help. We'd also be missing first contact with an alien civilization. The debate went on for hours. Earth Command had been notified and was discussing the situation at the highest levels of government. But Alex knew that ultimately, the decision might come down to what they did here and now. In the end, Alex made the call that would change everything. We respond, he said firmly. We tell them the truth. We explain that we're not who they think we are, but we received their message. We'll be honest about our capabilities and our location. If there's going to be first contact with aliens, let's do it the right way. Lisa composed the response carefully. She used the same mathematical language structure as the original message, keeping it simple and clear. She explained that Earth had received the distress call, but did not possess faster-than-light travel or significant military capabilities beyond their own solar system. She included basic information about humanity and Earth's location. They sent the message at maximum power, aimed at the coordinates in the Valoran distress call. Then they waited. The response came back 7 hours later. 7 hours, not 43 years. Lisa's hands shook as she decoded it. The message was frantic, filled with gratitude and confusion and desperation all at once. The Valorans had received Earth's response in real time through some kind of faster-than-light communication network. They were shocked to learn that Earth was not one of their allied worlds. The Valorans sent tactical data, fleet positions, and urgent requests for any help Earth could provide. The situation was worse than the first message had indicated. The Krethic swarm had already broken through their outer defenses. The Valoran homeworld would fall within months, maybe weeks. Then came another message, shorter this time. More final. Lisa read it aloud to the others, her voice barely above a whisper. We understand your situation. We apologize for our mistake in contacting you. May your world remain unknown to the swarm. Fight well if they ever find you. The galaxy will be darker without the Valorans in it. The transmission ended. The monitoring room was silent. Somewhere out in the galaxy, an entire civilization was facing extinction, and Earth had just revealed itself to the universe. The emergency session of the United Earth Council began at midnight. Leaders from every nation and colony gathered in the massive chamber in Geneva, their faces appearing on screens that filled the walls. President Helen Grant stood at the central podium, looking tired and worried. She had been in meetings for 18 hours straight since Hawking 7 had sent their report. We face an unprecedented situation, she began, her voice steady despite the exhaustion. We have made contact with alien life, but this contact has potentially exposed Earth to a hostile force we know nothing about. We must decide how to proceed. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices. Some representatives demanded isolation, cutting off all communication with space. Others argued for accelerating Earth's defensive capabilities. A few optimistic voices suggested that the alien threat might never reach Earth, that humanity could simply ignore the situation. Colonel Ben Harper waited for the noise to die down before he spoke. He was head of Earth's Strategic Defense Division, a decorated officer with a reputation for clear thinking under pressure. With respect, Mr. President, we don't have the luxury of ignoring this. The Valorans transmitted our location back to their homeworld in their response. That means the information exists in their communication networks. If the Krethic swarm captures those networks and intelligence suggests they will, they'll know about Earth. You're suggesting the swarm will come here next? Asked a council member from Mars Colony. I'm suggesting it's a strong possibility, Ben replied. The swarm appears to be expanding outward from a central point in the galaxy. They're conquering everything in their path. Earth is in that path, just further out. The only question is when they'll reach us, not if. Then what do you propose? Helen asked. We can't reach the Valoran system. We don't have the technology. Actually, a new voice spoke up, we might. Dr. Victor Kane stepped forward. He was a theoretical physicist who had been working on experimental propulsion systems at the research facility on Europa. He looked uncomfortable being the center of attention, but his eyes were bright with excitement. The data the Valorans sent included technical specifications for their faster-than-light communication system. My team has been analyzing it for the past 12 hours. It's revolutionary. They manipulate space-time in ways we never imagined possible. Can we replicate it? Helen asked. The communication system? No, probably not for years, Victor admitted. But they also sent basic navigational data, including references to something they called jump points. These appear to be naturally occurring wormholes that can be stabilized and expanded. If we can figure out how to do that, we could potentially create a wormhole between our solar system and theirs. The chamber went quiet. What Victor was describing was pure science fiction. Except now, apparently, it was science fact. How long would this take? Ben asked. To understand the theory? We're already working on it. To build the actual technology? Months at best. Maybe a year. The Valorans don't have a year, someone pointed out. No, Victor agreed quietly. They don't. Helen looked around the chamber at all the faces, physical and projected. I need a moment with my senior advisors, she said. The main screen dimmed, leaving only her inner circle visible. What are you thinking? Ben asked her. I'm thinking about what it means to be human, Helen said. We received a call for help. A desperate call from people facing extinction. What does it say about us if we do nothing? It says we're being practical, one advisor argued. We have to think about Earth's survival first. And what happens to Earth if we let the Valorans fall? Ben countered. The swarm grows stronger. They capture Valoran technology. They learn about us. Then they come here. And we face them alone with no allies and no time to prepare. You're suggesting we help the Valorans to help ourselves, Helen said. I'm suggesting that sometimes the right thing to do and the smart thing to do are the same thing, Ben replied. Helen was silent for a long moment. Then she straightened her shoulders and addressed the full council again. Here is my decision. We're going to help the Valorans. We're going to send a ship to their system, using Dr. Kane's wormhole technology. We're going to buy them time and learn everything we can about this threat, and we're going to prepare Earth for war. The vote that followed was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Earth would enter the galactic stage not through peaceful exploration, but through warfare. The next 3 months were a blur of activity. Dr. Kane and his team worked around the clock, building the wormhole generator in orbit around Jupiter. The device was massive, requiring resources from every colony in the solar system. Engineers and scientists who had been working on separate projects dropped everything to contribute. Meanwhile, the military prepared the UES Phoenix for its mission. The Phoenix was Earth's most advanced warship, built to defend the solar system against potential asteroid impacts and hostile forces. It had never been meant for interstellar travel, but now it would attempt something impossible. Captain Megan Ross accepted command of the mission. She was 42 years old, a career officer who had commanded vessels ranging from lunar patrol boats to the Mars Defense Fleet. She was known for staying calm under pressure and making tough decisions quickly. She would need both skills for this mission. I won't lie to you, she told her crew during their first meeting. This is dangerous. We're using experimental technology to travel to an alien star system in the middle of a war zone. We might not be able to come back. We might get there and find everyone already dead. Or we might get there and die ourselves. She paused, looking at each of their faces. 200 volunteers all knowing the risks. But we're going anyway, because someone called for help and we answered. That's what humans do. We show up. So let's show these aliens what humanity is capable of. The crew cheered. Jake Morrison, the technician who had first detected the alien signal, was part of the crew. He had requested transfer from Hawking 7 specifically for this mission. Lisa Chen was there too as head of communications. They would need her expertise to talk with the Valorans. The day of departure arrived. The UES Phoenix moved into position near the wormhole generator. All across Earth and the colonies, people stopped what they were doing to watch the broadcast. This was it, humanity's first step into the larger galaxy. Dr. Kane activated the generator from the control station on Ganymede. Space twisted and bent in ways that hurt to look at. A hole opened in reality itself. A tunnel through space-time leading to a point 43 light-years away. Wormhole stable, Victor reported. The path is open. Captain Ross sat in the command chair of the Phoenix, her hands steady on the controls. All stations report ready status. One by one, her officers confirmed their readiness. Engineering, weapons, navigation, communications, medical. Everyone was prepared. This is Phoenix to Earth Command, Ross said. We are go for jump. Good luck, Phoenix, Helen Grant's voice came through the speakers. Come home safe. And bring our new friends with you. Ross took a breath. Then she gave the order. Take us through. The UES Phoenix moved forward, entering the wormhole. Space stretched and compressed around them. The journey that should have taken decades at light speed took only seconds at wormhole speed. They emerged on the other side into a war zone. Explosions lit up the darkness. Ships twisted and burned as weapons fire crossed the void. In the distance, a planet glowed against the darkness, surrounded by defending vessels and attacking swarms of organic-looking ships that moved like insects. "Battle stations," Ross ordered calmly. "And someone get me the Valoran fleet commander. Let them know the cavalry has arrived." Around them, the war for the Valoran system raged on, and humanity had just joined the fight. The first thing that struck Lieutenant Chris Bailey about the battle was how beautiful it was. From the bridge of the Phoenix, the space around them lit up with weapons fire that looked like fireworks. Blues and greens and brilliant whites streaked across the darkness. Ships glowed as they burned. It would have been magnificent if it wasn't so deadly. "Scan complete," reported the sensor officer, counting approximately 300 Krethic vessels and maybe 150 Valoran ships. "The battle is concentrated around the fourth planet in this system." Captain Ross studied the tactical display. The Valoran ships were elegant, smooth curves of silver and blue that moved with grace through space. The Krethic vessels were different. They looked organic, like massive insects covered in armor plating. They moved in swarms, overwhelming individual Valoran ships through sheer numbers. Communications. "Get me that Valoran commander," Ross ordered. Lisa Chen worked her console, sending out a signal on the frequencies the Valorans had provided. It took a few moments, then a face appeared on the main screen. The alien was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin had a faint blue tint and its eyes were larger than a human's with vertical pupils. When it spoke, the translators struggled to keep up, but the meaning came through. "This is Admiral Talon of the Valoran Defense Fleet." "Who are you? That vessel configuration is unknown." "Admiral, this is Captain Megan Ross of the United Earthship Phoenix. We received your distress call. We're here to help." The alien's expression changed to something that might have been shock. "Earth? But you said you had no faster-than-light capability. How did you get here?" "Long story," Ross said. "Right now we need to know how we can assist. What's your tactical situation?" Talon seemed to gather himself. "Desperate. The swarm broke through our outer defenses 2 weeks ago. We're down to our last defensive line. If they get past us, our homeworld falls. But I must warn you, Captain Ross. Your single vessel, however brave, cannot change the outcome of this battle. You should leave while you can." "With respect, Admiral, we didn't come all this way to run," Ross replied. "Give us a target." What happened next was the first time the Valorans saw how humans fought. The Phoenix was not an impressive ship by galactic standards. It had no energy shields like the Valoran vessels. Its weapons were primitive kinetic railguns and nuclear missiles instead of plasma cannons. Its hull was thick metal plating instead of advanced composites. By rights, it should have been destroyed in minutes, but the humans didn't fight like the Valorans expected. Chris Bailey had spent his entire adult life studying military history and tactics. He knew Sun Tzu and Clausewitz, Sherman and Patton, ancient and modern warfare. He understood something that the advanced galactic civilizations had apparently forgotten. Technology alone doesn't win battles. "Captain, the Krethic ships move in coordinated patterns," he reported, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Perfect coordination. They're operating as a hive mind, responding to central commands. See how they never collide with each other? See how they concentrate fire exactly where it's most effective?" "Sounds like an advantage," Ross said. "It is until you disrupt the coordination. Then it becomes a weakness," Chris grinned. "Captain, I have an idea." 5 minutes later, the Phoenix dove into the thickest part of the battle, moving in ways that made no tactical sense according to galactic warfare doctrine. Instead of maintaining optimal firing positions, it wove between ships, creating chaos. It didn't try to destroy the Krethic vessels. Instead, it focused on confusing them. Technical Sergeant Nina Kowalski was a specialist in electronic warfare. Her job was to hack enemy systems, jam communications, and generally make life difficult for hostile forces. She had trained to fight other humans. Alien technology was different, but the principles were the same. "Picking up the Krethic command frequencies," she reported. "They're using a distributed network to coordinate their movements. It's sophisticated but not encrypted. They don't expect anyone to interfere with it." "Can you jam it?" Ross asked. "Better. I can corrupt it." Nina's fingers flew across her keyboard, sending false position data into their network now. In the void, Krethik's ship suddenly saw phantom targets that didn't exist. Their perfect coordination stuttered as groups of ships tried to respond to threats that weren't there. Ships that had moved in flawless formation suddenly found themselves colliding with each other. Admiral Talon watched from his command ship in amazement. What are they doing? How are they disrupting the swarm's coordination? Electronic warfare, his tactical officer replied, studying the data. They're attacking the Krethik command network itself. I've never seen anything like it. The Phoenix pressed its advantage. Captain Ross had no illusions about winning the battle with a single ship. But they didn't need to win. They needed to create an opening. Admiral Talon, she said over the open channel, we've disrupted their formation in Sector 7. If you concentrate your forces there, you can break through to their command ships. Talon hesitated only a moment. Then he started issuing orders. The Valoran fleet, which had been fighting a desperate defensive action, suddenly shifted to the offensive. They punched through the confused Krethik formation, targeting the larger vessels that appeared to be coordination nodes. The battle raged for hours. The Phoenix took damage. Its armor was scarred by Krethik weapons fire. One of its railguns was destroyed. Fires broke out on 3 decks. But Chief Engineer Raymond Scott kept the ship running through repairs that violated every safety regulation ever written. Don't need it to be perfect, he shouted to his crew over the noise of alarms and damage reports. Just need it to work for a few more hours. Raymond had started his career fixing cars in Detroit, then trucks, then spacecraft. He understood machines in a way that went beyond book learning. When standard repairs wouldn't work, he improvised. When parts weren't available, he made them. The Phoenix stayed in the fight because Raymond refused to let it die. As the battle continued, the Valorans adapted. They started using the tactics the Phoenix demonstrated. Instead of formal formations, they fought with flexibility and deception. They jammed Krethik communications. They exploited weaknesses in the swarm's coordination. For the first time since the invasion began, the Krethik advance stopped. Finally, after 12 hours of continuous combat, the swarm pulled back. Not defeated, but stalled. They retreated to regroup, leaving the space around the Valoran homeworld clear. On the bridge of the Phoenix, the crew slumped in their chairs, exhausted. They had been at battle stations for half a day, but they had survived, and they had made a difference. Captain Ross, Admiral Talon's voice came through the communication system. He sounded tired but grateful. Your vessel fought with courage and skill beyond anything I've seen. You bought us time, maybe enough time to mount a real defense. On behalf of the Valoran people, thank you. We're not done yet, Admiral, Ross replied. That was just the first battle. The swarm will be back, I know, but now we have hope. And we have allies. Talon paused. Your species fights unlike anything in the galactic records. Where did you learn such tactics? Ross smiled grimly. From fighting each other, Admiral. Humanity spent thousands of years perfecting warfare. We're very good at it. I'm beginning to see that, Talon said. Captain, my government wishes to meet with you formally. We want to share everything we know about the Krethik swarm, and we want to learn how you fight. We'll share everything we can, Ross agreed. Because, Admiral, I need to be honest with you. When we sent that message to you, we revealed Earth's location. The swarm might come for us next. So we need to win this war, for both our peoples. Talon's expression became serious. Then we will win it together. You answered our call when you had no obligation to do so. The Valoran people do not forget such debts. If the swarm comes to Earth, we will be there to help you. You have my word. The 2 captains, one human and one alien, looked at each other across the light years. In that moment, an alliance was born. Not through treaties or negotiations, but through shared combat and mutual respect. Below them, the Valoran homeworld turned peacefully in space, saved for now by the arrival of a single human ship that had no business being there. The Valoran homeworld was called Sereth, and from orbit it looked almost like Earth. Blue oceans covered most of the surface, with 3 large continents visible through scattered clouds. Cities glowed on the night side, clusters of light that spoke of a civilization millions of years old. Captain Ross led a small team down to the surface in a shuttle. Lisa Chen came with her, along with Chris Bailey and 3 security officers. The Phoenix remained in orbit, undergoing repairs with help from Valoran engineers who were fascinated by human technology. The landing site was the planetary capital, a city called Viran. From the air, it looked like something from a dream. Towers of silver and blue rose thousands of feet into the air, connected by graceful bridges. Gardens filled with alien plants covered every available space. The architecture was beautiful but impractical by human standards. Everything was designed for aesthetics rather than defense. Admiral Talon met them at the landing pad. In person, he was taller than Ross had expected, maybe 7 feet. His formal uniform was decorated with symbols Ross didn't recognize. Behind him stood a group of other Valorans, all watching the humans with obvious curiosity. "Welcome to Sarath," Talon said. The translator device hanging around his neck converted his words to English. "You are the first humans to ever set foot on our world. I hope you will find it pleasant." "It's beautiful," Ross said honestly. "Your people have built something amazing here." "Something we nearly lost," Talon replied. "Come. The council wishes to meet you." The council chamber was vast, with seats for hundreds of Valorans arranged in a circle around a central platform. Every seat was filled. The aliens watched silently as the human delegation walked to the center. Ross noticed that many of them had the same expression, hope mixed with desperation. The head of the council, an elderly Valoran named Elder Shen, spoke first. His voice was thin with age but clear.
"Captain Ross of Earth, your arrival in our darkest hour is nothing short of miraculous."
"The Valorans are a people who value knowledge and peace. We have traveled the stars for millennia, exploring and learning, but we never learned to fight. Not like this, not against an enemy that only wants destruction. The Krathic swarm appeared in our space 2 years ago," Talon explained. "They attacked without warning or communication. We tried to talk to them, to understand them. They just kept coming. Every system they conquer, they consume. They take everything. Resources, technology, even the populations. What they do with the people they capture, we don't know. Nothing comes back." Ross felt a chill. "How many systems have they taken?" 17 so far. Each one home to billions of lives. All gone." Shen's voice shook. "We are not warriors, Captain. We have weapons, yes. Ships designed for combat. But we don't think like warriors. We fight in formations that look good but aren't effective. We follow rules of engagement that the swarm ignores. We're losing because we don't know how to win." "You want us to teach you," Ross said. "Yes. And in return we will give you everything. Our technology, our knowledge, our resources. Whatever you need to defend Earth when the swarm comes for you." Chris Bailey spoke up. "Permission to speak, Captain?" Ross nodded. Chris addressed the council directly. "I've studied your battle tactics from the engagement we just fought. With respect, your forces fight like they're in a parade, not a war. Perfect formations, predictable movements, no deception or misdirection. The swarm is primitive in technology compared to you, but they understand warfare instinctively. They use numbers and coordination. They're willing to sacrifice ships to gain advantage. You're not." Some of the council members looked offended, but Talon nodded slowly. "You're right. Our culture values individual lives highly. We won't throw away ships just to create an opening." "It seems barbaric." "It is barbaric," Ross agreed. "War is barbaric. But if you want to survive, you need to be willing to do barbaric things. That doesn't mean being cruel or evil. It means being ruthless when necessary. It means accepting losses to achieve victory." "Can you teach us this?" Shen asked. "We can try," Ross said. "But it won't be easy. You're asking us to change how your entire military thinks and operates." "We're asking you to save our civilization," Shen replied. "We'll do whatever it takes." The next 3 weeks were intense. The Phoenix crew worked with Valoran military forces, sharing tactical knowledge and training methods. Chris Bailey became a lecturer, teaching Valoran officers about concepts like guerrilla warfare, combined arms tactics, and psychological operations. He showed them battles from Earth's history, explaining how smaller forces defeated larger ones through superior strategy. The Valorans were quick learners. What they lacked in warrior instinct, they made up for with intelligence and dedication. They absorbed the lessons and started adapting them to their own ships and weapons. Meanwhile, Nina Kowalski worked with Valoran technical experts. She taught them electronic warfare, showing them how to hack enemy systems and disrupt communications. The Valorans had the technology to do these things but had never thought to use them in combat. To them, interfering with enemy communication seemed dishonorable. Nina had to explain that honor doesn't matter if you're dead. War isn't a sport, she told a class of Valoran technical officers. There's no referee. There are no rules except what you impose on yourself. The Krethik swarm certainly doesn't follow rules. So why should you? Medical officer Dr. Paul Jenkins made a different kind of contribution. He studied the Krethik biology from the remains of destroyed ships. What he found was disturbing. The Krethik weren't really individuals. Each ship was controlled by a cluster of organisms working together, like a biological computer. They felt no fear, no pain, no hesitation. They were perfect warriors because they were programmed for nothing else. But being biological means they have vulnerabilities, Paul explained to Ross and Talon. Disease, poison, environmental factors. If we can exploit those weaknesses, we can hurt them in ways traditional weapons can't. You're talking about biological warfare, Talon said uncomfortably. I'm talking about using every tool we have, Paul replied. The swarm is using biology as a weapon. We need to do the same. While the training continued, Raymond Scott worked miracles in the Phoenix's engineering section. With access to Valoran technology, he started upgrading the ship. Better engines, improved weapons, stronger armor. He combined human engineering principles with alien technology, creating something new. The other human engineers called his modifications Scott's Specials. Upgrades that shouldn't work but somehow did. The Valorans overthink everything, Raymond explained to his team. They design things to be perfect. We design things to work. When you combine their technology with our practical approach, you get something better than either alone. Lisa Chen spent her time learning about Valoran culture and history. She talked with civilians, scholars, and government officials. What she learned painted a picture of a peaceful people who had never faced real evil before. The Valorans thought all intelligent life could be reasoned with. The Krethik swarm proved them wrong. They're in shock, Lisa reported to Ross. Their entire worldview collapsed when the swarm appeared. They don't know how to process it. Some of them want to surrender, to ask for mercy. They don't understand that the swarm doesn't negotiate. Maybe that's our real contribution, Ross said. Not just teaching them tactics, but teaching them that sometimes there is no diplomatic solution. Sometimes you have to fight. On the 20th day, sensors detected the swarm returning. This time they came with more ships, having reinforced their forces from other fronts. The battle for Serath was about to resume, but this time the Valorans were ready. They deployed their fleet using the tactics they had learned from humanity. Instead of formal battle lines, they used dispersed formations that couldn't be easily targeted. Instead of broadcasting their communications openly, they used encrypted channels that Nina had taught them to set up. Instead of playing defense, they prepared to attack. Admiral Talon stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the approaching swarm. Next to him, a holographic display showed Captain Ross on the Phoenix, which had taken position at the fleet's vanguard. "Are you ready, Admiral?" Ross asked. Talon took a breath. "As ready as we'll ever be. Let's show the swarm that the Valorans have learned to bite back." The battle that followed would become legendary. For the first time, the Krethik swarm faced an enemy that fought like they did. Ruthless, coordinated, and willing to accept casualties to gain victory. The Valorans still fought with their superior technology, but now they fought with human tactical thinking. The swarm had expected an easy victory. They found a slaughterhouse instead. The battle had been raging for 3 days. 3 days of constant fighting, with neither side willing to retreat. The space around Serath was filled with debris from destroyed ships. Human and Valoran and Krethik mixed together in a deadly field of wreckage. On the Phoenix, the crew was exhausted. They had been at battle stations for 70 hours with only brief breaks. Coffee and stimulant pills kept them functional, but everyone was running on fumes. Captain Ross herself hadn't slept more than 4 hours in the past 3 days. "Status report," she called out, her voice hoarse. "Main railgun at 60% capacity," reported the weapons officer. "We've got 3 missiles left. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7 are patched but not pretty. Life support is stable. Engines are holding together by Raymond's magic and prayer." Ross almost smiled. Raymond Scott had been working non-stop, keeping the Phoenix functional despite damage that should have destroyed them twice over. He was currently in engineering, probably held together by caffeine and stubbornness. The tactical display showed the overall battle situation. The Valorans had fought better than ever before, using human tactics to blunt the swarm's numerical advantage. But the Krethik kept coming. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. They were pulling forces from across their territory, concentrating everything on breaking through to Serath. "Captain," Chris Bailey called out. I'm picking up something big on long-range sensors. Really big? It's coming from the edge of the system. Ross looked at the display. A massive contact was approaching, dwarfing everything else on the scanner. What is that? Running analysis now. Mass estimates are off the scale. It's at least 50 times larger than our biggest ships. Chris worked his console frantically. Captain, I think that's their mothership. The Krethic Central Command vessel. On the communication channel, Admiral Talon's voice came through. He sounded defeated. We're detecting it too, Captain Ross. Our records mention these motherships. They're rare. The swarm only deploys them when they want to ensure complete victory. Nothing has ever survived an encounter with one. There's a first time for everything, Ross said, trying to sound confident. What do we know about them? Very little. They're biological vessels like all Krethic ships, but on a massive scale. They coordinate the entire swarm in a star system. Destroy the mothership and the swarm loses cohesion, but destroying one is nearly impossible. Their armor is meters thick and they're protected by hundreds of smaller ships. Ross stared at the approaching contact. It would reach the battle zone in hours. She needed a plan. But what could one damaged human ship do against something that large? Dr. Paul Jenkins called from the medical bay. Captain, I need to talk to you right now. It's urgent. Ross made her way to medical, grateful for an excuse to leave the bridge for a few minutes. She found Paul hunched over a microscope, surrounded by data displays showing complex biological models. I've been studying the Krethic biology, Paul said without preamble. The samples we collected from destroyed ships. Captain, I think I found a weakness. These things are biological, which means they're vulnerable to biological weapons. The Valorans won't use biological warfare, Ross said. We already discussed this with their council. They consider it too unethical, even to save their planet, Paul challenged. Look, I understand their concerns. Biological weapons are terrible, but this isn't some plague that will spread uncontrollably. The Krethic biology is so different from anything on Sirath that a pathogen targeting them won't affect the native life. What are you proposing? Paul pulled up a display showing a complex molecular structure. This is a virus I've engineered using Valoran medical technology and some samples from Earth's biological database. It targets the specific proteins in Krethic tissue. It causes rapid cellular breakdown. Basically, it eats them from the inside. How would we deploy it? That's the tricky part. It needs to be introduced directly into the mothership's circulatory system. These big vessels work like giant organisms. They have internal systems that distribute nutrients and remove waste. Get this virus into those systems and it will spread throughout the entire ship. Ross understood the implications immediately. We'd need to get inside the mothership, past all its defenses, past all the swarm ships protecting it, and then deploy your weapon. Yes, it would be a suicide mission. Ross was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Let me think about it." She returned to the bridge and pulled up the tactical display again. The mothership would arrive in 3 hours. The Valoran fleet was holding, but barely. They couldn't win a straight fight. They needed something dramatic, something crazy, something human. "Get me Admiral Talon," she ordered. When the Valoran commander's face appeared on screen, Ross explained Paul's plan. Talon listened silently, his expression troubled. "You're asking us to use a biological weapon," he said finally, "to essentially commit genocide against the Krethic organism." "I'm asking you to survive," Ross replied. "Admiral, the Krethic swarm has killed billions of your people. They've destroyed 17 civilizations. They won't stop. They can't negotiate. They can't be reasoned with. So what choice do we have? There's always a choice, Captain. Yes, the choice between survival and extinction. Between fighting with every weapon you have or dying with your principles intact." Ross leaned forward. "Admiral, I respect your culture's ethics, but ethics are a luxury of peace. We're at war, and in war you use whatever works." Talon was silent for a long time. Finally he said, "If we do this, we become like them. We become monsters." "No," Ross said firmly. "Monsters kill because they enjoy it. We kill because we have to. That's the difference. The swarm chose this war. We're just choosing to win it." Another pause. Then Talon nodded slowly. "Do it. May the ancestors forgive us." The plan was simple in concept but terrifying in execution. A single fighter craft would need to penetrate the mothership's defenses, enter its internal structure, and deploy the biological weapon. The pilot would likely not survive. Ross put out a call for volunteers. Every single pilot on the Phoenix and in the Valorant fleet volunteered. Ross had to choose just one. Pilot First Class Amy Torres was 26 years old. She had grown up in Texas, learned to fly crop dusters as a teenager, and joined the Earth Space Force as soon as she was old enough. She was the best pilot Ross had ever seen, able to make a spacecraft do things that shouldn't be possible. "Why you?" Ross asked when Amy volunteered. "Because I'm good enough to maybe pull it off, Captain. And because somebody has to." Amy grinned. "Besides, I've always wanted to be famous." "This'll do it." They loaded Paul's biological weapon into a modified Valorant fighter. The craft was fast and maneuverable, stripped down to nothing but engines and the payload. Amy would have to rely on speed and skill to survive long enough to reach the target. The mothership entered the combat zone like a mountain floating through space. It was enormous, its surface covered in organic armor that pulsed with its internal processes. Smaller Krethik ships swarmed around it like remoras around a shark. Amy Torres launched from the Phoenix's hangar bay. Her fighter was a tiny speck against the massive Krethik vessel. "Phoenix, this is Torres. Beginning my run. If I don't make it back, tell my mom I died doing something cool." "You'll make it back, Torres," Ross said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. "Now show these aliens how humans fly." Amy pushed her fighter to maximum speed, diving into the swarm of Krethik ships. She flew like a demon, weaving between enemy vessels, using debris as cover, accelerating and decelerating in patterns no algorithm could predict. She flew on instinct and skill, human intuition against alien coordination. The Phoenix and the Valorant fleet created a diversion, drawing away as many Krethik ships as possible. But plenty remained to defend the mothership. Amy's fighter took hits, armor peeling away, systems failing. But she kept flying. "Almost there," she reported, her voice tight with concentration. "I can see an opening. Some kind of intake port. Going in." The mothership's interior was a nightmare of organic tunnels and chambers. Amy flew through passages barely wider than her fighter, following the flow of nutrients toward what she hoped was the circulatory system. Behind her, Krethik internal defenses tried to stop her, but she was too fast, too unpredictable. "Deploying payload now," Amy said. She fired the canister containing Paul's virus into a major artery of the mothership's biological systems. "Package delivered. Now let's see if I can get out of here." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the mothership began to convulse. The virus was spreading through its systems, breaking down tissue, killing the massive organism from within. The great vessel shuddered and twisted as it died. The Krethik swarm ships suddenly lost coordination. Without the mothership's directing intelligence, they became confused, colliding with each other, firing randomly. The organized threat became chaos. "All ships, attack now," Admiral Talon commanded. The Valorant fleet fell on the disorganized swarm with fury born of desperation and revenge. They destroyed Krethik ships by the dozens, by the hundreds. What had been a losing battle became a massacre, and through it all, a single human fighter craft weaved through the debris, searching for a way out of the dying mothership. "Torres, report status," Ross called. "Still alive, Captain. Still trying to find the exit. This thing is like a maze in here." The celebration on Serath lasted for days. Millions of Valorants filled the streets of their cities, cheering and crying with relief. They had survived. Their world was saved. The Krethik swarm had been defeated. But in a quiet conference room far from the celebrations, Captain Megan Ross sat with Admiral Talon and Elder Shen. The mood was not joyful. "We need to talk about what comes next," Talon said, his voice heavy. "The swarm knows about Earth now. Before the mothership died, it transmitted all its gathered intelligence back to the central Krethik territory. That includes everything it learned about your planet and its location." Ross had expected this. She had known from the moment they deployed the biological weapon that there would be consequences. "How long do we have?" "Months at most. The swarm will analyze the data, determine that Earth is a threat, and send a force to eliminate you. And not just any force. After what you did here, they'll send everything they can spare." Elder Shen leaned forward. "Captain Ross, your people saved us when you had no obligation to do so. You risked everything to help strangers. Now we will help you. The Valorant Council has voted unanimously. We will share all our technology with Earth. Faster-than-light drives, energy shields, advanced weapons, manufacturing systems, everything. We will also send ships and personnel to help defend your world. Your people have a saying, I believe," Talon added. "No good deed goes unpunished. You saved us, and now your world is in danger because of it. We owe you a debt we can never fully repay, but we will spend the rest of our existence trying. Ross felt the weight of command settle even heavier on her shoulders. She had made decisions that saved the Valorans but put Earth at risk. She hoped history would judge those decisions fairly. Then we need to move fast, she said. The Phoenix needs to return home immediately. Earth needs to start preparing for war. The journey back through the wormhole took only moments. But when the Phoenix emerged back into the solar system, Ross found that 3 months had passed. Time dilation effects from the wormhole technology meant the ship had experienced only weeks while Earth experienced months. And in those 3 months, Earth had not been idle. President Helen Grant met Ross at the lunar shipyards, which had expanded massively since the Phoenix left. Where there had been a few construction docks, now there were dozens, and each dock held a ship in various stages of completion. "Welcome home, Captain," Helen said. "I trust you have a lot to report." "We won, Mr. President. The Valorans are safe, and they're sending help." Ross looked at the shipyards in amazement. "But I see you've been busy too. When you sent word that Earth was now a target, we mobilized everything. Every nation, every colony, every resource we have. We're building a fleet." Helen gestured at the ships under construction. "These vessels incorporate what we learned from the Valoran data transmissions. They're not as advanced as what the Valorans will bring, but they're ours, built by human hands with human determination." A Valoran diplomatic vessel arrived 2 weeks later, escorted by 3 warships. The aliens brought technical experts, engineers, and military advisors. They also brought gifts, complete databases of Valoran technology, fabrication equipment, and most importantly, fully functional faster-than-light drives. Dr. Victor Kane nearly cried when he saw the Valoran technology. "This is centuries beyond what we could have achieved on our own. Maybe millennia. They're giving us everything." "They owe us," Colonel Ben Harper said. "And they know the best way to repay that debt is to make sure Earth survives. Because if we fall, the swarm keeps expanding. Eventually, they'll circle back to Valoran space." The next 6 months transformed humanity. Earth's industrial capacity, already impressive, was supercharged by Valoran technology. Factories that had built cars and computers now built starship components. Orbital facilities that had assembled satellites now assembled warships. The colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan became military bases and training grounds. Jake Morrison, the technician who had first detected the alien signal, found himself promoted to Fleet Admiral. He protested that he wasn't qualified, but Helen Grant overruled him. "You started this chain of events. You're going to see it through. Besides, you understand the technology better than any traditional military officer. We need that expertise." The new Earth fleet took shape. 20 capital ships, each one a kilometer long, armed with both human and Valoran weapons, 100 smaller cruisers and destroyers, thousands of fighters, and all of it crewed by volunteers who trained day and night to be ready. The Valorans sent 5 of their own warships to join Earth's defense, commanded by Admiral Talon himself. "We fight together now," he told Jake at their first joint strategy meeting. "Your people and mine, and we will show the swarm what alliance means." But the Valorans brought more than ships. They brought knowledge of something called the Galactic Commons, a loose alliance of civilizations spread across the galaxy. Most were peaceful species like the Valorans, focused on trade and exploration rather than military power. When they learned about Earth and what humanity had done to save the Valorans, reactions were mixed. Some species welcomed humanity as heroes. Others were suspicious of a race that had mastered warfare so thoroughly. A few wanted nothing to do with a civilization that would use biological weapons, even in desperate circumstances. "Let them judge us," Helen Grant said when she heard about the controversy. "We did what we had to do to survive. If that makes us monsters in their eyes, so be it. I'd rather be a living monster than a dead saint." Lisa Chen became Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Commons. She argued humanity's case in meetings with dozens of alien species, explaining Earth's history and philosophy. "We are not warlike by nature," she told them. "We're survivors. We've faced extinction before and clawed our way back. The Krethic swarm is just another threat. We'll deal with it the way we've dealt with every threat, by refusing to quit." Some species started to understand. A few even sent aid, mostly in the form of intelligence about the swarm's movements and capabilities. One species, the Korthan, sent military observers to study human tactics. They were impressed. "Your people fight with creativity we've never seen. the Corthan observer told Chris Bailey during a training exercise. You adapt constantly. You use deception as naturally as we use weapons. Where did you learn this? From necessity, Chris replied. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We got very good at it because the alternative was extinction. Now we're using those skills to fight a common enemy. The swarm arrived at Earth on a cold November morning. They came in force, more ships than had attacked Valor in space. The invasion fleet was massive, blotting out the stars. But they didn't find a helpless primitive world. They found a fortress. Earth's defensive fleet, combined human and Valoran ships, met them at the edge of the solar system. The battle that followed would be remembered as the largest space engagement in human history. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded from the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's new flagship. All ships execute Battle Plan Alpha. Show them what Earth is capable of. The fleet didn't fight in formal lines. They fought using every tactic humanity had developed over centuries of warfare. Ambushes from behind asteroids, feints and false retreats, electronic warfare that jammed Krethic communications, psychological operations that broadcast fear-inducing signals on frequencies the swarm's biological sensors could detect. Captain Amy Torres, now promoted to squadron commander, led her fighters in daring strikes against Krethic command ships. She had become famous across human space. The pilot who had destroyed a mothership. Now she proved that success wasn't luck. She was simply that good. The battle raged across the solar system. From Mercury to the Kuiper Belt, ships fought and died. The Krethic swarm pressed hard using their numerical advantage. But Earth's forces, strengthened by Valoran allies and human tactics, held the line. Raymond Scott, now chief engineer of the entire fleet, coordinated damage control across all human vessels. He had trained thousands of engineers in his improvisation techniques. When ships were damaged, they stayed in the fight through creative repairs that worked, despite violating every engineering principle. Dr. Paul Jenkins found himself on the front lines of another biological warfare campaign. The virus he had created for the mothership at Valoran was adapted and weaponized. Missiles carrying biological payloads were fired into Krethic formations, causing their ships to die from within. It was terrible and effective. The swarm threw everything at Earth. Wave after wave of ships crashed against the human defenses. And slowly, despite their best efforts, the Krethic began to advance. Then something unexpected happened. More ships arrived in the solar system, but these weren't Krethic. They were from the Galactic Commons, a dozen different species, each sending whatever military forces they could spare. Not much by galactic standards, but enough to make a difference. This is Fleet Commander Wren of the Corthan Collective, a voice announced over the communication channels. We're here to help. Nobody fights alone against the swarm. Not anymore. The reinforcements tipped the balance. The Krethic swarm, already struggling against Earth's unconventional tactics, found themselves fighting a truly united force. Species that had never worked together before coordinated their attacks, and at the